stories that connect us to ourselves and each other. These stories reveal who we are and show us the many vivid, wild colors of our truth. Welcome to Soul Wanderings, where we raise spiritual awareness and foster connections through these shared stories and personal experiences. And now, exclusively on KGRA Radio, I give you your host for Soul Wanderings Radio. Here's AJ.
Hello, happy day, friends. It's Soul Wanderings night, where we receive an opportunity to hear journey stories from humans from all walks of life, all types of experiences. And these humans show up to share authentic pieces of themselves with all of us. I am AJ Rasmussen, your host. Hello. It's lovely to have you here with us this evening. It really is going to be a fantastic night. It always is when we get to hang out together and listen and learn about topics relating to our experiences with being a human. Thank you for being here with us. I heard a rumor that our guests are a lot of fun, so no pressure to them, but I can't wait to see what kind of fun we'll be having. What about you? If you are interested, there are ways that you can participate during the show. If you're listening live with us, we have the chat room to play in. The chat is hosted here on kgraradio.com. You will want to log in if you want to chat with other listeners during the show, and you will want to be in there if you have a question for our guests. That's the place to go and do it. Myself and the producers, Bill and Eric, will grab those questions for us as time allows, so hop in there. We're going to do a short introduction of each of our guests tonight. Yes, each. We have two again this week. And then once we have our little introduction, you know how it goes. We'll just go into some really good, authentic conversation. So first off, we have Dr. Myke Merrill, which is better known as West Coast Myke.
No, East Coast Myke.
East Coast Myke.
I'm the East, yes.
Okay, so Dr. Myke Merrill is East Coast Myke. So that's how we'll refer, because they're both Mykes, okay? He's been a pastor of a local church in one town for 40 years. He graduated, magna cum laude with a Bachelor of Arts in Religion and Philosophy and a minor in Psychology. He also has a Master's of Divinity degree from Ashbury Theological Seminary with academic honors. He earned a Doctor of Ministry degree from Northeastern Seminary with his dissertation, The 5 Basic Emotions, a New Systems Approach, which I am sure we're going to hear about that one. Our other guest is West Coast Myke, Michael Wilson. He's a social. I already know I'm going to love you guys. He's a social scientist and working professional in education for almost 20 years, along with 25 years in professional religious work. In both areas, he was actively training, speaking, counseling, crisis counseling. He was a leader and in leadership development. Together, they'll be sharing the book and topics relating to why do people act that way and what can I do about it. Please welcome to the show both Dr. Myke Merrill, East Coast Myke, and Michael Wilson, West Coast Myke.
I'm just the other guy. I'm the West Coast guy. I'm just the other guy,
And all that stuff you read about me means I learned how to take tests and write papers. And it has nothing to do with actually knowing anything.
He doesn't know a thing.
Well, you're in good company then.
I beat the system. Yeah, I learned how to do the system.
As a good boomer should.
I love that you guys have a sense of humor, especially with the topics at hand that we'll be talking about, because we take ourselves so seriously, and this will be really good for all of us, I do believe. So
yeah, we don't take ourselves seriously at all.
I can tell. But isn't that part of like the way to not take things so seriously is having a better experience, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Letting a lot of things just go because you don't need it. Now, I'm excited to hear what you guys are going to talk about in regards to that. But first, let's make sure everyone knows who you guys are. Who's going to go first, East Coast Myke or West Coast Myke?
Well, I always defer to the older one. He's the elder. So
yes, that's right. I am the elder Myke. We're actually twins that are born to different mothers, but we were both born in Washington. Myke was born in the state of Washington. I was born in Washington, D.C. But I was born 25 days before West Coast Myke. So I have much more experience, and I am very much more worldly wise, having been born in September of 1953 instead of October of 1953, which is a Mikey come lately kind of thing to do.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Well, 25 days, that's a lot of experience.
It is. When you're a baby and you're 1 day old, 25 times that length is what I have lived in advance of Myke.
and I put up with it for years, so it's okay. I understand.
Well, obviously you guys have a wonderful dynamic. This is good. So good. Okay, then, East Coast Myke, tell us about yourself.
I have a very lovely wife named Pam. We've been married 45 years together, so a 90 total. Her 45 are not as great as my 45 because I was married to her. She ended up being married to me. We have 4 adult children, and we took in a foster girl in 1980 who became our permanent daughter. She's 9 years younger than we are. So we go around telling everybody that our first child was born when we were 9, and we started from there and then had 4 more kids beyond that. I have 13 grandchildren, all of whom are absolutely lovely people. I have been a pastor in this. What's that?
Which reminds me all the time, sending pictures and all that kind of stuff.
I do. Yes, I do. I have mugs. I have mugs of my grandchildren's faces, and I regularly hold them up in front of the camera. Myke and I work a lot together. We've known each other for a long time. I have been a pastor in the same town, but 2 different churches. I was in a denomination for 22 years, and then the whole congregation and myself went independent, and so I'm still in the same town. But I don't sit around waiting for people to drop in my office so I can hold their hand. I've never done that. In addition to being a pastor, I write books. I travel around and teach and do training along with Myke. We work together in a variety of settings. I own a sign making company. I was a registered interpreter for the deaf. I speak 8 languages, just a bunch of stuff like that. So that's kind of who I am.
Just a bunch of stuff like that.
Yeah, a bunch of stuff like that.
Well, that's a lot of stuff. Thank you for sharing all of it.
I can make it sound like a bunch of stuff if you want me to do that.
No, it really is a bunch of stuff. That's what I'm saying.
West Coast Myke is just going to laugh all the way through when I say, and then he'll say, I'm the other Myke.
Okay, other Myke, it's your turn. You're in the hot seat. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, God. Well, I'm the guy that takes what he writes and makes sense out of it, basically, so people can understand what he's trying to communicate. And
I need one of you.
and I carry the luggage. No, we have known each other, AJ, and we have actually been close friends for about 35, 36 years, somewhere there. After a while, you lose track.
35, yeah.
Yeah. But no, I've lived in.
It's a good story how we met, but we won't do that right now. Keep going, Myke.
We won't do that. I'm a Washingtonian. I'm one of the 3 of us that are the originals here in the state. And so I'm a Pacific Northwest boy, which makes for really some very fun dynamics between Myke and I as we talk about things and work through things, because there are just huge, very significant cultural differences across the country that I think a lot of times people don't really understand how that works. But I have 5 grown kids as well. I have 1 grandson, and I have another one on the way. and three of my children are married, and I have great daughter-in-law and two great son-in-laws.
Wow.
But I have
sons-in-law. The plural is sons-in-law.
Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry.
You can tell they've been for so long.
you have to remember too that that Myke is the grammar police, so you have to be really careful with that.
That is true, and West Coast Myke doesn't really speak English, so that's fine.
and I don't really care.
Keep going, Myke. Keep going. Don't let me interrupt.
Oh, sorry. I forgive me for letting you interrupt.
You're forgiven.
Okay, thank you. We have done a lot of training. I've done a lot of training in my life, and one of the things I have been a sociologist by training as well as just who I am. And one of the big pieces of what I always do is I like to figure out how the dots connect and how people connect dots in their lives emotionally. And so that's a lot of what Myke and I do in our trainings and our work. It's been really fascinating because religious work, I wrote that in there because sometimes when you write being minister or pastor, people have this kind of weirdness of what they think. But then as I've heard these introductions a couple of times with religious work, I'm thinking, yeah, that's probably even weirder than saying a minister. But I was a pastor for almost 25 years before I went into education for almost 20 years. And a large portion I did in both places, which was development of systems, sociological systems and emotional systems, of connecting people, connecting programs, figuring out ways to make things work for folks. So it's been real fascinating in doing that. So our journey together, for whatever reason, he and I have a very similar dynamic in how we have approached dealing and working with people and helping them. And like him, even when I was in ministry, I was not somebody who sat in my office waiting for somebody to come in me to hold their hand. I was always out working with people and figuring stuff out, helping them connect and do those kinds of dynamics. So right now, believe it or not, I actually, what I call, until they stole the phrase, and what I call phase 3 of my life, which is I retired last year from the education. But I need to probably find a job so I can go back and get some rest because I'm busier now than I was when I was working. So I work with, not only do I do stuff with Myke, but I have stuff I do in ministry and church here, but I also have, for whatever reason, about 3-4 years ago, I started getting involved in, I guess the word would be mentoring, which I don't like that connotation, but I'll use that word because people would probably understand that, 20-something men. And I work with those guys in just trying to navigate life and use a lot of the principles we have, but a lot of it has to do with, it's the toughest time in a young man's life, quite frankly, is in their 20s when they're trying to figure out where they're going, what they're doing. And so I've spent literally hundreds of hours helping, sharing, doing stuff and trying to move along. And so help guys move along as well as what I wish somebody had done for me when I was that age. Mm-hmm. So it's what a lot of I do. The crisis chaplaincy, all those kinds of things that are on there are really part and parcel of just the reality of both how Myke and I, we are goers to people versus y'all come. And so we're not clinical by any means, and what we share is not clinical. It's built in practice. It's built in life and the reality of life and working. And I probably should mention, because probably Myke will somewhere along, but I was married for 23 years until my wife decided she needed to take a break, and she went home to see Jesus. She died of colorectal cancer about 13 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so that wasn't my plan, but that's has been a journey that both Myke and I, we've walked together, and it's kind of an interesting story. But yeah, amazing woman. And I give all the credit in the world to the fact I have 5 amazing kids, and she was the one that made it happen. So, yeah. So anyway, yeah.
You have little pieces of her with your children. That's so wonderful.
Oh, I have big pieces. I don't have little.
No, I just mean like she's scattered all around, which is just wonderful to know that she's still very much part of your life.
Yeah. Well, it's actually quite funny. I have 2 of my daughters that look very much like me, and then my other 3 kids look nothing like me. In fact, both of my sons don't look anything like me. It's kind of like, well, do you have a dad? I mean,
no, they're beautiful. They're beautiful. They look like Reenie.
They do. They're gorgeous.
Yeah.
There's 2 of them that are just kind of like, okay, well, anyway. So that's me in a nutshell. I live in Washington. I look out at glorious, except right now it's all smoke. But normally I look at the mountains. I live in right in the middle of Washington, right on the Columbia River, and look at all the mountains around us. Yeah, so
beautiful. Yeah, my heart really goes out to all of those natural disasters that are occurring in your direction. It's very unfortunate, but thank you for sharing about both of you guys. You have full lives, lots of things going on. And I love that you're both go-getters. You're going out and looking to see how you can be of assistance, which is just good medicine. I appreciate that.
When we were young, we didn't have as much to talk about because there just wasn't as much experience. But now that we've lived a combined 14 decades, that makes us sound really old, doesn't it? 14 decades of experience. Yeah. Now we have so much to talk about, we don't know when to shut up. That's the problem of being old.
I'm turning my oxygen on right now because I just can't.
Oh my gosh. Because it's all that laughing. It's all of the laughing.
Yes, and I don't laugh. Myke is the empathetic one. I'm the pathetic one. Oh. And so we work well together.
Oh, no.
Well, the reality is Myke is out to change the world. I'm just out to have a great time. So
that's exactly right.
That's how it
I was getting ready to retire from pastoral ministry, and one of my church leaders said to me, so when you retire, are you going to putter in the garden or putter on the golf green? And he's snickering. And I said, no, I think I'm going to go change the world. And he started laughing outright, which didn't annoy me. It just was curious that he started laughing at my comment. And he said, I noticed you're not laughing. And I said, no, I'm going to go change the world. And he said, how are you going to do that? And I said, I think me and Myke have learned some things that actually will transform how people understand themselves and what to do about it. We've been teaching this now for quite a number of years, but it's time to get serious about making a world impact. And so that's what we're setting out to do. And we're going to change the world. I mean, I think we can. Once we get the
I believe you can. I believe you already are.
Well, thank you.
I mean, laughter is infectious. We'll have East Coast Myke do the talking, and West Coast Myke will laugh.
That's pretty much what that works.
That works pretty well. No, that's kind of the way it goes. So
it's wonderful. I love the dynamic between the two of you. It really is infectious.
There was a national poll that was taken as to whether or not Myke and I should live in the same state or even on the same side of the Rocky Mountains. And nationally, there were 0 people that thought we should live near each other. So he lives 2,782 miles to the west of me and gets all the hours of the day after I've used them up.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, but somehow
there's still more. Yeah, there's obviously
have a very nice laugh. But why are you laughing at what I'm saying? I'm serious.
I am appreciating. I'm sure you are, but I find humor in it.
I'll bet you do. And see the infectious laughter. It's like yawning. I don't yawn when other people yawn.
And you're not laughing when other people.
And I don't laugh when other people laugh. No, that's.
But I can make him laugh.
He's the empathetic one. I'm the pathetic one. Why say M? My name starts with M. His name starts with M. He wants to be empathetic. I'm just. Well, let's go on.
Yeah, enough.
Well, we still have about 5 minutes before our first break, so I'm interested. You guys said there's a story in how you met. Is that something you want to share?
Oh, sure.
Sure. I'll tell my version, and then Myke can make the corrections. We were both invited from the West Coast and the East Coast to be on a national council for our previous denomination. We were both in the same denomination. On the youth area, I was a youth director and Myke was a youth pastor in a local church. And we were both very successful at what we did in developing leaders and workers and students, that we were good at what we did. Both of us were. And so we were invited to be on the national council, and we had a initial meeting, I think it was 1985 or 86, somewhere in there, at the denominational headquarters. So both Myke and I ended up at the check-in counter at the same moment. We had never met each other. We did not know who each other was. We met at the counter and we started hassling the young girl who was trying to check us in, and we're laughing uproariously. Finally, she asked us to sit down and wait. Well, one of the bishops came charging through the lobby, furiously upset because he had locked himself out of his room. And his key was inside, but he had shut the door and it slip locked when he was going. He was trying to get ready for the initial launch meeting. And he was looking for the girl that had the keys. She had stepped away from the counter, disappeared. So I very quietly got up, walked up one flight of stairs to the second floor, used my credit card, and opened his door. I came back and sat down. And when that bishop came through again, I said, "Oh, your door is unlocked." It wasn't really tightly locked. It just was stuck a little bit. He goes, "Oh, thank you so much." And he went up to finish getting dressed. And West Coast Myke looks at me and he goes, "How did you do that?" And I said, "Don't ask a question you don't want the answer to." And he said, "I want the answer." And I said, "I have skills that don't necessarily pertain to my current occupation." And we both started laughing. And one of us, we don't remember which one, said, "I think we're going to be best friends for life." And we have been since that day.
That is such a great story.
Myke, is that close? Isn't that close?
Yeah, that's pretty close. Yeah, they actually had us come to this meeting because we both were causing so many problems in the areas we're in, because we kept asking the wrong questions.
We don't use the word problems. We use the word opportunities. We created opportunities.
Oh, I love that.
No, we were a problem.
No. Other people call them problems. We call them opportunities.
Yeah, you saw yourself as an opportunity, but that's not what everybody else saw you as.
Well, obviously the connection was made, and it's such a fantastic one. I really enjoy your guys' energy. It's so good. So good. And there's a lot more from this point that has occurred between you both, obviously, and that's why we're here tonight. We have a couple more minutes, so I don't want to go to that quite yet.
We transformed the council into a leadership team, and when our predecessor got cancer and he wanted to be a local guy again, he had leukemia, he stepped down after a youth conference that had 2,000 kids in Colorado, and he just walked away from the whole program. So it was left to the 8 of us, and West Coast Myke Wilson. We never sat next to each other ever at a table. He pointed across the table and said, pointing at me, "We all want him to be the next director." I said, "I do not want to be a director. There's no way. I'm a local guy." So we worked out a process where I could stay in my local church and run the international youth program with the team, and it worked. We did that for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
It was actually quite funny because the head of the department, who was going to choose the next director, was in our meeting. And I remember that meeting really, really well, because we're sitting, and Myke, you're right. Myke is right. We never ever sat by each other. We sat across the room, and which was probably somewhat good, and other times not, because then we were, interacting across the room. But I remember distinctly, just he was starting to talk about replacement, of our predecessor, and I just looked at him and I literally pointed right at Mike's sitting across the room, and I said, "That's the new director right there. He needs to be the guy right there." And there was this pregnant pause in the room, because there were a couple other climbers in the room that really wanted this job badly.
Wait a minute, there were 8 men on the council, and there was not a pregnant pause. It is not possible for there to have been a pregnant pause.
He really got you.
The look on his face, I wish I had a picture of it, because it was between the look of, I think I just really want to do you bodily harm right now, and why in the world are you saying that? I don't want this. This is a nightmare. How am I supposed to do this? I just laughed. I said, "Yeah, that's
of course you did."
Right yeah.
He laughs a lot.
I hadn't noticed. No.
Yeah.
I have a good feeling that our audience has a pretty general idea about the type of guys you are, if they were to make an assumption. However, there's so much more to learn, and we're going to also learn about the book. Why do people act that way, and what can I do about it? So stay close, everyone. On the other side of this break, we're going to get into it. We'll be right back.
Hi, folks. It's troubling times, and fear is pushing emotions, which in turn pushes health the wrong direction. Do you ever get an ache because life is uneasy? Try Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. Life Change Tea works on your digestive tract, helping to move food through quicker and comfortably so your health is spot on. Life Change Tea may not help with world issues, but it will help with your digestive issues. A glass a day helps keep the intruders away. So, change your life today. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. If your health game is off, get on by ordering Life Change Tea. Getthetea.com. And while you're on our site, look around at the great non-GMO organic supplements. And if you're a sales shopper, go to our specials page and see what's for you. I've been drinking the tea for 12 years, and I'm sure glad for its health benefits. Again, that's getthetea.com. Getthetea.com. The tea that makes you go.
I'm getting older and noticing that my body just doesn't work as well as it used to. So I like to keep fit as possible by hitting the gym a few times a week. Recently, I started having a nagging bicep pain, and it got so bad I couldn't even lift the weights. When I was complaining about it to a friend, he told me about AngioPrim. He said chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in veins and arteries that may cause blockages. You know, after just 1 week of taking AngioPrim, the pain was gone, and now I'm back in the gym full strength. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in AngioPrim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. So to learn more, go to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com, or talk to a trained consultant. Call AngioPrim toll free at 945-882-7221. You'll feel better with more energy. That's 945-882-7221. Or go to the website angioprim.com.
Folks, this is very important information. What's to be said about CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. Our CBD is made from hemp and has 0.003 THC, which means this wonderful product won't get you high, no matter what amount you take. What does CBD do for the body? My hands are tied, but you can Google CBD benefits and be astounded. When you're finished reading, you'll want to log on to AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com and purchase. Life is good when you feel good. People are tired of pain. People are asking for non-GMO organic products to help them with you fill in the blank. Legal in 49 states, and again, our CBD is made from hemp. Ancient Life Oil is about helping people one by one by one. If you wonder how good the product is, the CEO takes it every day without miss. AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Have a great day.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRAradio.com.
Hello, welcome back to Soul Wanderings, heard here on KGRAradio.com. I am AJ Rasmussen, your host, and we are hanging out with two guests tonight, Dr. Myke Merrill, East Coast Myke, and Michael Wilson, West Coast Myke. Welcome back, you guys, after that short little break.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
We were talking during the break. These guys are really good medicine, don't you think? All this laughing, it's got my happy juices flowing through my body. I just love it. I'm so happy you guys are here with us tonight. So we have a pretty good idea of what kind of show we're going to have. It's going to be a good one, a happy one. And one of my favorite topics is discussing emotions and the type of energy we put into the emotions. It's one of my favorite things. So when I found out about these two fellas, I got really excited because together, so I guess Dr. Myke wrote the book, but West Coast Myke collaborated. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Is that how that works out?
Sure. That's a good way of putting it. He wrote the foreword. He helped me do a lot of the writing. He edited with me, but I'm the writer.
Right.
So why do people act that way, and what can I do about it? This would be a good book to gift to people, like all of your people in your circle, I feel. So tell us a little bit about the book, and then let's get into some depth about it. Like, what is this book all about? Sum it up, and then let's talk in depth.
So let me give it a little bit of background, and Myke, be sure to cut me off at about 3 minutes. Otherwise, I'm going to blather on for quite a long time.
I will. Trust me, I'll shut you down.
When I started college, I wanted to be a clinical psychologist. So I took everything that I could take that had to do with preparing myself to be a clinician. And as I went through that preparation, my involvement was with the church as well. And I struggled with the idea of being available to people, number one, at all times, and number two, with no cost. The pastor of my church really encouraged me to consider pastoral ministry because that would allow me full access to homes, hospitals, prisons, birth centers, people who are elderly and dying, 24 hours a day, and I wouldn't have to charge. So in addition to other aspects of pastoral ministry, that was a very big one for me. I found out very quickly that the psychological model works with about 1% of the people that I was dealing with to diagnose their personal challenges, come up with a recommended therapy, follow them through, and give some kind of prognosis. That clinical work has a place, but it did not apply to most of the people that I was encountering. Children, teenagers, young families, senior citizens, people on their deathbed, people in crisis, people just having a normal life. So this sounds very strange, but as a pastoral counselor, I almost gave no advice for 10 years. I just listened to how people formulated their own thoughts on what they were feeling, what they were thinking, and what it meant. So after about 10 years, I was taking notes. I began formulating an idea that there are only 5 basic emotions, just 5. And the complexity is we tend to have many, many words that overlap, and they're mysterious, and they sometimes are extremely difficult to even put a definition to. So people feel emotional, but they don't quite know what it's doing to them, and they don't know what to do with it. So over that period of time, I began to develop this theory that there are only 5. And I eventually got my doctorate, and I went to a seminary, but it was in counseling. And I said to them, can I bring in this theory that's about 80% done and spend the next 3 years finishing it up and writing my dissertation? They said, absolutely. We love people coming in with an idea what they want to do. So I spent 3 years researching and finalizing the idea of the 5 basic emotions. I began doing seminars. And as I taught, people came out and said 2 things over and over and over. One was, that's the best thing I ever heard. I really needed to hear that. And number 2, you need to write a book. I use the word need there. You need to write a book. And so I know. I don't use need, should, ought, or must. Those are verboten words for me. So I wrote a book, and I called it, the title of the seminar, Why Do People Act That Way, and What Can I Do About It? And as Myke and I then collaborated, we wrote seminars and we developed the idea, and we have a lot more content to it than just that. But that became the basis of what we teach and why we teach it. Our goal is not merely recognition. It is resolution. And the most difficulty that I found in families and relationships, in personal walk, in the journey of life, is when emotions are not felt accurately and when they're not resolved effectively. So those became the 2 thrusts that Myke and I have worked so hard on, helping people understand their emotions accurately and helping them resolve them effectively.
And so very basically what we ask is 2 very simple questions out of all of this, AJ, that is, what is this doing to me and what am I going to do about it? And so what we find in most settings, even right now, we've had the privilege of doing a number of these kinds of interviews, and in kind of the midst of all of the, if you will, I don't know if you want to call it trauma, but the emotion is probably a better word, of all of the COVID stuff and the mask and the not mask and so on and so on and so on, and all the emotions that swirl around that. And one of the things that we have known and we just encourage are those 2 questions, because people don't ask those simple questions of themselves. And it's fascinating for us and for me to say, okay, what is this doing to you? Now, what are you going to do about it? Because then that opens up the whole area of us to begin to talk about how do you deal with the emotional aspect of your life. And we teach, if you look at our book, the cover of our book has 4 heads that build a Venn diagram, basically. And in the middle of that Venn diagram they're all overlapping. In the middle is a diamond with a question mark. And that little diamond in the middle with a question mark is what we say this is reality. This is your reality. And that has to do with a combination of your perceptions, your emotions, your motivations, and your behaviors. And when you put those together and you have them functioning in that context of what is this doing to me and what am I going to do about it, that becomes the reality, that little diamond in the middle. And so it's fascinating, though, how people don't even begin to ask, what is going on? What is this doing to me? Why is this the way it is? Now, what am I going to do about it? So that's really, it's very, like I said earlier, this is not clinical. This is very practical years of just working with folks and doing a lot of listening and a lot of connecting the dots. But now we were able, and really because of Myke's work, we were able to put it into terms that we can share with people.
As simple as those questions are, what does it do to me and what can I do about it? They're so powerful. They're so straight to the point and allow you an opportunity to really dig deeper into what your experience is.
One of the things that where we came up with those questions is somewhat interesting. As I counseled teenagers, people who experienced trauma as children or teenagers and now are adults, they could be 40 or 60 or 80, they could be any number of years, and they're still experiencing the trauma or the conventional day-to-day normal way of life. the expression that I heard over and over and over was, you make me, or you made me, and then fill in the blank. You made me so angry. You made me so happy. You made me so sad. And the accusation or the shift of responsibility was put on someone else or something else. And as I explored that with people, I found out that partly they were resistant to taking on both the privilege and the responsibility of their own emotion, but sometimes they were just ignorant of that. They had learned as children, shove off your feelings into other people's hands and let them be responsible. And now they're the ones that have the privilege to run your life. And as I help people kind of unravel that, that's like a ball of yarn that the cats got into, to help them unravel that, really had to do with them coming to grips with those two questions. They kind of wrote themselves in my mind. Mm-hmm. What is this doing to you? Pick an event, this traumatic event, this surprising outcome, this wonderful thing that happened. What is it doing to you? And what will you do about it? What can you do about it? And so when a person is presented with that question, the challenge is, wait a minute, my emotion belongs to me. Mm-hmm. And an outside individual may have taken an action which you have an either automatic response or a novel response. You might get angry over this kind of situation or choose anger. But the reality is that if you own the anger, you can say, I am going to choose to scale that down right now, or I'm going to choose to scale that up right now. You can make an actual conscious choice. I'm going to choose to set the anger to the side and use laughter as a response. Now, it may not necessarily fit, but the person now becomes privileged and responsible for their own journey. That, to me, was the sun shining through the clouds. It was the perfect wave arising exactly at the moment you're trying to surf. I mean, it all fit together, and that became essential to the entire concept that we're teaching. What is it doing to you, and what will you do with it? So we wrote the book, Why Do People Act the Way They Do? I observed that and experienced it, but what can I do about it is really the key question.
Oh, absolutely. I call that giving your power away. When you allow someone else to make you feel a certain way, you are no longer in control of how you feel. You're giving your power away. So take it back. Give it back so you are in control of how you feel or how you react or whatever that looks like.
And we start from a premise that's probably a little different than most people see emotion, that then allows us to have a different dynamic of being able to answer those questions. And that premise is that emotions are neutral. They are in of themselves, they are not positive or negative, they are neutral. What you do with that emotion then changes the dynamic of it, whether it becomes something positive or negative. But as an emotion, it is a neutral thing. People, when you say that to, because most of the time people say, well, don't be angry. I mean, so you have a person that their whole life they've been told that if you get angry about something, then, oh, you're just a terrible person because anger is a terrible thing. It's like, well, let's think about that for a minute. Is anger in of itself positive or negative? Well, it can be both.
And AJ, one of the things important is, bear in mind, we're both ministers. So we live in the religious world. And the idea of you ought to be ashamed because you're angry is very much woven into many people's religious experience. The concept of anger itself was deemed as morally wrong. That I pushed back against that because the concept itself is destructive to the way we're made. At times, it is extremely good to be angry. Some of the things that we have going on in our country right now, everyone ought to be enraged about in order to bring about change that is necessary. But when a person lays back and says, it doesn't bother me a bit, one of the realities is when you say, let's stoke your anger up a little bit. I mean, you're letting things happen that you're taking no responsibility to grab a hold of and bring about change. Because for us, anger is about change and use of power. So at the beginning, it's not a bad emotion. Love is not automatically a good emotion. I studied, one of the books that I studied for my doctoral work is called The Bad Emotions. Actually, it's out there, The Bad Emotions. And they talked about fear, anger, and sadness, grief. And the book said, try to do the best you can to stop feeling those feelings, feel joy and happiness and love. And it's like, what? You've got to be kidding. That's right. Just not human. That's not the way in which we're wired. So fear, right, at times is essential for a person to feel appropriate fear. It's very good. The problem is when the stimulus for fear, what makes you feel unsafe or insecure, is no longer present, or you have the resources for safety, but you don't feel them. Now the fear is beginning to control you and destroy you. Your anger can be creating bitterness and eating you from the inside out. Your grief can be interfering with all your relationships. It's bad. Your love can become an addiction. It can become an obsession. It's taking over your life and running you. Your thrill seeking is now dominating everything you do, and nothing that's bland matters to you anymore. So any emotion can be good. Any emotion can be bad. It's what is it doing to you and what do you do with it? That became the key.
Right. It's so good. I mean, it makes sense, right? It makes sense. We are just so good as human beings on allowing those emotions to take over, or to be numb to them, because we're taught not to feel those things.
That's true.
It makes a lot of sense. I do have a question in the chat room. You brought up the state of the being of our country right now, which is obviously a huge topic, and I'm sure you're talking to a lot of people about it. But there's a couple of questions and a statement from a listener. Do you feel people are especially stressed between the virus, questionable employment, the riots, an election coming? And how do you counsel people that are stressed by life and the current events? What do you recommend to them? That's a lot of emotions going on.
Yeah.
And Myke laughs.
Well, because laughter is a good thing. Yeah.
It's such a good thing.
I think one of the keys is that life itself is always stressful. Stress is not bad. When a person builds a bridge, they anchor its footers into the sides of the bank or the cliff or whatever it is. And the bridge actually creates enough stress to push those footers into place and keep them solid. The very, very few people can climb up on a mountain, zen themselves out, smell the flowers, and have zero stress in their life. But the reality is when muscles have zero stress, they don't grow stronger, they atrophy. So people who travel into outer space, they have machines every single day that stress their bodies. Otherwise, when they return here, they're just going to be a sack of Jell-O, and they won't be able to survive. The issue is not how do I eliminate the stressors of my life. The issue really is, what is the stress actually doing to me? Is it imaginary stress? Am I multiplying it to myself? Or is it authentic stress that I myself am experiencing? And then what do I do with that? Either it destroys me or it strengthens me. That old quip of whatever doesn't destroy me makes me stronger actually is reality. And the question then is, do you have the freedom to be able to say a certain stressor will not destroy me? It is going to make me who I'm going to be. As an example, let's get into real life, because there's talking theory forever doesn't matter. One of the things that caused in my life for me to change from being a secular Jewish young kid we had a worldview that was built on wealth and privilege and nothing about religion. I didn't have any religious training at all, but my family was a Jewish family. My mother got cancer when I was 11, and she died when I was 15. During those 4 years, my age 11 to my age 15, my older brother ran away and left me as the kind of de facto oldest child with three younger siblings. My father was an alcoholic and very smart guy. He was a systems analyst for Jet Propulsion Laboratories for a company. Very, very, very smart guy. But he dealt with stress by drinking and was off at bars. So I was the person who changed my mother's bandages. I gave her medicine. I made her tea. She threw it up. I cleaned up her clothes, changed her as a 12-year-old, changing my mother's clothing, doing the laundry. I learned all those skills. When my mother died, I'm convinced that when my mother died, she'd been in a coma for 6 days. I was in the hospital room. I had no religious training. I had no spiritual sense whatsoever. And I felt like somebody got up and walked out of the room while I was sitting there. It was only my mother on a heart-lung machine and me. And I was surprised by it. It was like somebody just got up and walked out. I wonder what happened. So I'm a 15-year-old kid, no context. I went out and found a nurse, and I said, something just happened in my mom's room. She came running in, looked at all the machines. I knew how to read all the machines because I've been there a lot. And she said, no, everything's the same. She said, what happened? And I said, I was sitting here doing my homework, and it was like somebody got up and walked out of the room. And the nurse said, I think your mother just died. That was probably her soul leaving her body. I said, what? She goes, I've been doing nursing a long time in critical care, and that was probably your mother dying. And so her body's still, the machines are keeping her breathing going, and then her heart's pumping. She said, I'll have them run some tests in the morning, see if her brain activity has stopped. So they ran tests in the morning, determined then that her brain activity had stopped. They pronounced her dead the next day. But that moment, I am absolutely convinced to this, as I'm talking to you right now, that was the moment that something spiritual happened in my mother's journey. And then the question is, does that terrify me for life? Am I angry about that for life? Am I bewildered about that for life? It actually equipped me to go into any situation, even death itself, look it in the face and say, I've been here before. I know you. So I became a pastor. My father committed suicide 6 years later. So I have dealt with every kind of family stress, strife, challenge, overwhelming situation, and said, I'm going to embrace this, and it is going to make me the person I'm becoming. And so I've taught that concept everywhere I've gone.
Are you a believer that the experiences you go through are meant for you to live your purpose? Does that make sense?
That's a good way of putting it. Sure. If it's to live your purpose, it's kind of like that's all mapped out, and we're following a ruler that's a steel ruler, immovable, unchangeable. It's the way things are. It's what fate is. And that the future is already set. It already exists. I don't believe that. Personally, I don't believe that. The past also doesn't exist. The reality is our memory of the past, our interpretation of the past exists, but in and of itself, those events have stopped happening. What happens is what is right now. Right. The reality of now is what exists. So I can plan for the future, but I can change the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It is not absolutely set. So the purpose that I discover is the purpose of who I am and who I am becoming as a result. That for me is my purpose.
Beautifully put. To be more specific, yes, that would make that is a beautiful answer. I asked that question not only because you're more on a religious standpoint. I'm definitely on a spiritual standpoint. My life has been colorful, and I've always believed that what I'm doing now is a result of what I have been through. And not that it's in a fine line, like that hard-edged ruler. Not like that at all. But I do what I do today because of what I've experienced. I want to help other people go through things or heal or recover or however that looks like, because I had gone through my own path of what they are, my own version of what they are experiencing. And that's why I asked. I find it interesting that you had those experiences as a child, and then your life that you have had and currently have, how in alignment they are.
They are. And had I chosen to follow my initial inclination was math and science. When I was in high school, advanced math, calculus, it just came easy to me. I didn't have to study. I just memorized all the formulas. It just got in my brain and just sat there like a living being. And so for me, math was easy. Had I chosen to go into math and science, I would have used the discoveries that I had in engineering, and I would have become somebody in that field that would do the same things I'm doing now. Right. It just, by being a pastor, it actually allowed me immense freedom to be able to serve people and help them in countless ways without any of what I called the restrictions. I wasn't restricted by time, by location, or by money. It allowed me to do whatever I wanted to do to the best of my ability without those restrictions. That for me. And if I had been an engineer, I wouldn't have been working in an office. That would have stifled me terribly. So,
very good. Very good answers. I really appreciate it. Myke, we'll get back with you here right after the break. So hold that thought. Don't lose it, because I don't know what you're thinking.
I won't.
Stay close, everyone. We'll be back here in a few moments.
Hi, folks. It's troubling times, and fear is pushing emotions, which in turn pushes health the wrong direction. Do you ever get an ache because life is uneasy? Try Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. Life Change Tea works on your digestive tract, helping to move food through quicker and comfortably so your health is spot on. Life Change Tea may not help with world issues, but it will help with your digestive issues. A glass a day helps keep the intruders away. So, change your life today. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. If your health game is off, get on by ordering Life Change Tea. Getthetea.com. And while you're on our site, look around at the great non-GMO organic supplements. And if you're a sales shopper, go to our specials page and see what's for you. I've been drinking the tea for 12 years, and I'm sure glad for its health benefits. Again, that's getthetea.com. Getthetea.com. The tea that makes you go.
Permanent industrial glue impossible to remove? Not anymore, because Handyman Formula by D-Bond is a patented chemical adhesive remover. It's used in the building and home maintenance industry, but now it's available for your home use, for your DIY projects. Unglue stickers, silicone rubber, labels, price tags, flex tape, weather stripping, carpet glue, wood glue, liquid nails, even 3M 5200. And it dissolves graffiti. Yeah, graffiti. Handyman Formula by D-Bond works, and it's safe to use on most surfaces. No need to call a professional. Don't get out the pliers and blowtorch. Just apply a little Handyman Formula by D-Bond and wait 90 seconds, then quickly and easily pull the items apart. Get unstuck. Visit dbondhandymanformula.com. That's dbondhandymanformula.com, or call 561-575-4200. Handyman Formula by D-Bond.
The Liberator Rocket Heater will heat your home for free. The highly efficient Liberator Rocket Heater has no moving parts. It's safe and strong, constructed of quarter-inch steel. So like all things made in the USA, it's built to last. Uses any kind of wood, sticks, even scrap in its gravity-fed firebox. And it heats workshops, homes, garages, outbuildings, industrial areas, and barns. Watch the video of this blast furnace stove in action. Visit rocketheater.com. That's rocketheater.com.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app. Free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
You are listening to Soul Wanderings on KGRA Digital Broadcasting, Salt Lake City, Utah, Hudson Valley, New York. And Soul Wanderings can be found on all of your favorite listening platforms like iTunes, Spotify, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, all of them. Just look for us. We'll be there. And all of my shows are available for replay on soulwanderings.com. So if you're enjoying the show, I would appreciate you heading over there. Share with your best pals. If you have a journey story to share or something really amazing you want to get out into the world, there's a contact section. Send me a note. I'd love to hear from you. We are visiting tonight with Dr. Myke Merrill and Mike Wilson, East Coast Mike and West Coast Mike. And so far, we're having a great time. Right, fellas?
Yeah, so far.
So far.
We might
We'll see
plunge
what
off
the rest
a
of the
cliff.
show looks like.
If there's no good bridge built, we're going into the pit here. Is that what you're saying, AJ?
Yeah.
You never know. It depends on how I decide to feel about it.
That's exactly right. And what are you going to do about it? That's good. I got it.
Feel good about it no matter what, because this has just been a really great time so far. We have West Coast Mike, who will be exiting stage left here by our next break. So let's make sure we get some time with him before he goes. You were going to actually share. I told you, save that thought, whatever it is, before we got cut off by the break. So let's just jump into it. What were you about to share with us?
Well, I'm going to go rabbit trail for just a second because,
That's good.
Because, okay, this one's free, all right? Because right now, everybody, this whole stress thing is a big deal. And I'm not a Pollyanna kind of person at all. And most people probably don't know what that is. Like gray sky is going to clear up, put on a happy face. If we just all smile, it'll be wonderful. But I do think there is a sense in which people need some hope in their lives right now. But it's fascinating. You talked about it, and this is the free part. You're talking about the story. If you have a really good story, a big story to tell, in your life. However you said that. I'm butchering it, but what I want to say is it's everyone has a story. Mm-hmm. Everyone has a story. And people need to realize that their story is valid. I don't care whether you have, I live in the shadow of Dr. Myke, East Coast, and it's actually very hysterical when somebody decides to read his entire intro, which is takes 25 minutes to get all of the stuff in there. And this is not a negative thing towards him. It just cracks me up every time we do this, because it would be so easy to think, oh, wow, I haven't done anything. I speak one language. I'm mono. I can't do you could go on and on and on. Okay.
Right.
You know what? My life is my life. My experience is my experience. My story is valid. It may not be this incredible thing that everybody keeps splashing on social media about all the wonderful things, and they're lying anyway and making you feel like your life is worthless. Your story is valid. And that goes into the next part of what I wanted to say in regards to that question about stress. And Myke hit on it, started talking about some of that in dynamic, and I agree with him. But one of the things is perspective. You know, if your perspective is only of now and the framework of what's around you now, you're going to struggle in a mighty way because you are not really listening to other stories. You're not realizing a perspective that we need to get into an understanding of really history past and what has taken place, and quite frankly take some confidence in the stability of what's gone on, even though it's been difficult. Here we are on the other side of those things, and we are still existing. We still have a civilization. We still have community. We still have those things. I think the big part of the stressor right now, when you look at the issues of COVID and election and, the whole Black Lives Matter, and just go ahead and pile on there, which, for us, we're in, smoke where it's, air particulates are 400 to 500. It's been that way for the last, 4 or 5 days. Just keep going. Well, let's get perspective here. In what's taken place in the past, and then in the perspective of saying, we've already lived.
Oh no, we're losing you, Myke.
We've lived through tuberculosis. You're losing me?
Oh, you're coming back. Go ahead.
All right, sorry. We're lived through all of those types of things as a civilization. Does that make this time frame easier? No, but it does give us perspective that says, you know what? If we got on the other side of that, don't you think we're going to be able to get on the other side of this?
Exactly.
I'm going, yeah. So maybe you need to hear some stories. Maybe what you need to do is sit down with some people that have got more mileage than you do and listen to the battles that they have fought and have won and have gotten on the other side of. How did they get there? And allow them to speak into your life in their very mundane story. But guess what? They lived through that. We lived through 9/11. Okay, that's not a virus. I get that. Was it a traumatic event? You bet it was. Did it bring us as a country literally to our knees? It certainly did. And yet it was one of those things we felt like we could go and do something about. Same kind of stuff. We just have a very different dynamic that's happening in our culture right now that causes us, I believe, to struggle in a greater way. And that's called social media, because it keeps all this emotion ramped up so much by disinformation. And I think many times for people, they think they are doing a service by putting their opinion out there, and they're not trying to be mean about it, or they're not trying to be negative about it, or they're not trying to, but they're putting their opinion on it. But the problem with what's happened is now opinion has become fact, and people glom onto that, and all of a sudden we got a problem, because it's really not reality. And then what happens? What's it doing to me? And what am I going to do about it? Because it's having real impact. And so when people ask, well, what about this stress? I think you have to get you need, if you will, sorry, Michael, that whole, the design to get perspective, get the story, take some historical perspective about what's going on, and then ask those two very simple questions. What is this doing to me, and what am I going to do about it? Because emotionally, it's really impacting me. Does that make sense?
Absolutely does. Yes.
We have a couple of trigger words that I listen for that I have kind of a preset orientation against. One of them we've mentioned briefly is need, should, ought, and must. Mm-hmm. The words and supposed to and have to and gotta, all that kind of expression.
We need to take, no, I shouldn't say need. They need to go away out of our vocabulary for a lack of a word to replace the need.
Well, the challenge is what we are so politicians, parents, teachers, preachers use need, should, ought, and must as a main verb of many, many sentences. And they are words of obligation and pressure. They create expectations that often the hearer is not able to grapple with. And so the response is, I feel ashamed. I know I'm wrong. I'm not doing what I need, should, ought, or must do. So that's one. And we replace it with what can I do? What will I do? And to change the vocabulary or to eliminate need, should, ought, and must, just take them out of the sentence. But that's one. The other one for me is ever, never, always language. When I hear everybody, always, never, nobody, when I hear extreme statements, my mind says the person's lying to me. They've eliminated every detail that doesn't align with a preconceived idea. So when my children were teenagers, they would say, I want this kind of boot or clothing or experience or whatever. Why do you want that? Well, everybody has it. Nobody has to go to bed at 9 o'clock. Everybody gets it. And after a while, I was realizing, wait a minute, that's not true. You're just eliminating every aspect and anecdote that doesn't align with your preconceived idea. On Facebook, it is endemic. Everybody, always, what we all do. And as soon as I hear all, that's ever, never, always language. I know it's not true. So helping people filter through the messages that impose a sense of guilt and shame, of isolation, or forced inclusion is really essential to gaining perspective. And for me, the trigger words are ever, never, always.
Mm.
Yeah, and I would agree with that so many times when you have conversations with people, when they use that kind of terminology, I can tell you in those conversations, I will just say, well, I don't think that way, so I don't think you can say everybody. Mm-hmm. That's not me. So you need to change that word, because once you take me out of that, then it's not all. It's not everybody.
Yeah.
And that that's a conversation piece that I use many times with folks when they make broad statements. I plainly will stop them in that by inserting, well, I don't think that way, so tell me how that works with everybody, because I'm part of everybody, but I don't think that way. So help me understand.
And one of the challenges is, and Myke just used the expression, a broad statement. Broad statements or generalizations become absolute statements. Everybody and nobody and always and never. Those are not just broad statements or generalizations. Those are now absolute statements. Yeah. Always literally means there are no exceptions. This is what takes place. The answer is that's not true. So I'll usually introduce, so are you part of everybody in that case? Do you believe that? Do you do that? Do you say that? Well, no, I don't. Well, that's interesting then, but you just made the comment, everybody does this, but you yourself don't. Can we talk about that? I asked for permission. Can we talk about that? And some people have said to me, no, I don't want to talk about it. Other people say, well, yeah, but I didn't even realize I said it that way. That's interesting. So
it does cause a separation, doesn't it?
Yes. And one of the things we talk about in our motivational piece is that whole dynamic of what we call culture, that a culture establishes in a flexibility. It becomes much less flexible in its conceptual understanding than, if you will, say, dialogue in motivation. And so when people get into a set culture, or what we are, defining a lot across our country right now as tribalism, where you're of a certain tribe and this is how we all think, this is what everyone does in this group. Now you have put it in a terminology, in a place that says there is no longer any sense of discussion or dialogue that could be had to be able to even move people from one place to the next, because they have decided this is who we are, period. We're not moving from that. Well, it's not that I don't think that people, I'm principled. I have certain principles that are core values in my life. I understand that. I get that. Am I afraid to have dialogue about my core principles? Absolutely not. But when I turn my core principles into culture, that no longer is there any sense of dialogue about that, then we've got a real problem, because we can no longer have a civil conversation. Then we become us and them. Then we become those guys and us guys. Then we become, label it whatever you want to label it. It's really fascinating to watch what happens within that kind of dynamic when we talk about what that reality is in that cinnamon diamond in the middle. When you bring perceptions, emotions, motivation, and behavior together, part of motivation is when you do that in a sense of culture, then that becomes much more difficult to work with.
Myke, were you going to say something? I heard a breath, so I didn't want to cut you off.
Me or Michael?
You're the one who's breathing. I'm not breathing over here.
East Coast, Myke.
Oh, okay. Well,
no, that wasn't my breath. He's the one that sucked in his breath.
Usually what happens at that point, I stop, and then he jumps in and tries to correct 45 things that I just said.
But he didn't this time. He was listening.
I was listening. I was rapt. I was in rapt attention.
You were not.
Oh, I really like that. I really like that you guys brought up the overuse of always and everyone, especially the need, the must, should. I always say don't shit all over yourself, because I was so good at it at one point until I became aware of the words that I was using. And energetically, for me, it was energetically of how I use my words and what kind of effect they would have on me and my experiences.
True.
Especially when it came to expectations.
When I was counseling, which I've done, families that are in stress, husbands and wives getting ready to divorce or actually having become divorced, couples getting ready to get married, and then having the pre-marriage squabbles that sometimes couples break up over. Mm-hmm. And as I would listen to them converse, sometimes they would speak at me, not at each other. And then sometimes they would direct their barbs or their challenges at each other and not at me. I heard frequently the ever, never, always language. That's where I actually learned how to use that expression. And I would say, I am hearing a great deal of ever, never, always language. And then they would sometimes say, what is ever, never, always language? It's when you make all the anecdotes align with one viewpoint and eliminate every other consideration. For example, you just said the reason why you can't live together is he always leaves the car empty of gas. And she would say, he does. He always leaves it empty of gas. And he would immediately retort, blow up. I do not. It is never empty. And now we go. So when we begin to actually unpack reality, we find that she has had a need personally to find adequate accusation to give herself permission to make a change. And he fights back against that. So then we begin to unravel the complexity, they find out actually they're much more aligned, but there's other issues that are interfering with their relationship. Once we get past the surface stuff, we can now get down to reality. And there were couples that just simply were not fit for the lifetime together. It wasn't possible for them to maintain an ongoing relationship. Do I grieve over that? Am I happy about it? Neither one. The reality is they have to make a choice for their journey, and I am here to help them as much as I can and create as little damage for their families and particularly for their children as is possible to do in that situation. So it happens. That I'm okay with that. And people would say, you're okay with us splitting our family up. I'm okay with the reality that happens. Let's go from here. If you don't want to do that, we can begin to resolve some of these fissures that have happened in the foundations of your lives. But if you don't want to do that work, I'm supportive of you. I'm supportive of both sides here. And so it's the ever, never, always language that really became the singular evidence that there was mutual lying going on and a change of what's real to what is not real. That's where I learned it.
Fascinating. It really is interesting. Come to think about conversations that I've had in relationships when those words are used and how detrimental they have become by using them.
So, when's our next counseling session, AJ? You just had another one of those pregnant pauses where you're thinking about something so deeply that we went to silence. And that is making Bill and Eric very, very uncomfortable.
Yeah,
I'm
dead
just
air. That's not a good thing.
counseling? I haven't done that bit, but I'm open to it. Absolutely. I'll make an appointment.
You know, language is such a big deal, and we really do not spend near enough time trying to understand just terminology and language, and there's so much change and nuances that are happening within language, you know. And I mean, I tease Myke about being the grammar police, and we do it to each other. I have to confess, I give him a bad time as well, but we do that because
Did he go away again?
Could have.
Yeah.
We do it because we sharpen each other. The reality is that a stone can be damaging, but it also can be sharpening. And so the reality of what Myke and I do together is to create greater edge points by challenging the way we think and the conventional ways we normally say things. The gift we give to each other, he sometimes calls it a problem. The gift we give to each other is to always analyze and challenge what we're saying and how we're saying it. How is it coming across? When do we stumble? When do we back up and say, oh, that is not what I meant? So we have a book, and we can talk a little bit about that when Myke takes his break. We're going to go to ours in a minute.
Skip the break altogether. We were just going to have Myke leave as he needed, but it sounds like he's already left us.
It could be. He may have had a technology failure. So
right.
The reality is we not only have a book, we're not just trying to sell a book. We do in business training, we do college training, we do on virtual consultations, we do one-on-ones, we do 2 on a team of 10. There are all kinds of situations that we work in as a team and as individuals based on the concepts that we're developing. The 5 basic emotions, one of the things we can talk about in this last half hour is how the 5 emotional systems work and why that concept is so integral to what we teach. But the entire system of PEMB, perceptions, interacting with emotions, interacting with motivations, interacting with behaviors, which interact with our perceptions and on around the circle, that idea, that philosophical concept of the human experience has become very helpful in giving people not only the concepts, but the language to talk about things that are very difficult for them to deal with. That's why we wrote what we wrote and how we've developed the training that we've developed.
I'm really excited that you guys have and that you are sharing it. This information so far of what I've read from the book is completely important to every relationship across the board.
I would agree.
Literally change everything. everything always.
I have 13 grandchildren, as I mentioned at the top of the hour, and one of the things that I do, I'm the weird grandpa, and I say to my grandchildren, your last name is Merrill, and what that means is weird. And so when somebody calls you a weirdo, your response is, thank you very much, I'm a Merrill. And they actually have said that when they're 4, 5, 8, 10, 11 years old to friends that go, you are really weird. And they'll respond, yes, thank you very much. My name is Merrill. And so instead of having a strategy of feeling put down or ashamed or embarrassed, they feel pride in what other people think of as a put down. And I've taught them how to do that. Beautiful. The issue really has to do with take ownership for the emotions you have. I have a grandson, Jacob, who lives in my house. He and his family lives upstairs from me. And today he was doing these ninja moves. He just turned 7. So he's doing all these ninja moves with a stick, and he's spinning the stick around and kicking the air and all that kind of stuff. And he makes a comment, I hate you so much, I'm going to kill you. And he stops right in the middle of a kick, and he looks at me and he goes, is it all right if I hate people enough to kill them? And I said, what do you think about that? And he goes, can I just hate them without killing them? And I said, that's a great idea. And he says, so he goes back into his moves, and he's throwing the stick around, twisting it like he's some ninja warrior and kicking the air. And he goes, I hate you so much, but I'm not going to kill you. And I thought, that's interesting. So he's kind of thinking through, and I can imagine their parents say, you're not allowed to hate. But there could be situations that are worthy of righteous people standing in the gap and hating what is evil. So in and of itself, it's not wrong to do. To execute judgment, that's where the problem usually arises. So we talk about those things as a family instead of, and I have breakfast often with different grandchildren one-on-one, and we practice facial expressions, and we practice tone of voice, and we practice every bizarre thing that I think a human being really should have capabilities in. So when people meet my grandchildren, they say they use words that normal 6-year-olds don't use. And I say, yeah, I read the dictionary, and if I find something really interesting, I will teach them a word that no one else uses. So we do that kind of, I'm that grandpa. I'm the weird one, which is fine.
I think that's my last weird. Name. I think that is so amazing for them to have that type of mentor in their lives.
Which
so
is,
good.
other than that, I'm going to be the grandpa that putters around in the garage and nobody ever sees. And I didn't want to be that kind of grandpa. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's not me.
Right. No judgment towards it. It's just not who you are.
Correct.
When you bring up having emotions like you've brought up hate, emotions that we generally tend to think are negative or grief, or don't be sad, don't be angry. All of those things that we always put this expectation or standard on what they look like or what they should be like. When in all actuality, when you and Myke both said earlier that emotions are neutral, and it's not until we put whatever energy into it that will make it become what it is for us.
That's an interesting idea. And sometimes the idea of strong emotion is what's bad. But I don't believe that either. Let me explain real briefly what the 5 basic emotions are, the 5 systems, and how they work. And that will clarify, I think, a platform on which we can discuss some ideas. We're going to wander, so let's wander.
Well, you're in the right place.
Yeah, that wood for me is not a tangle. It's trees that have been set in a proper row. And once you understand the patterns, the forest now becomes incredibly beautiful instead of incredibly dangerous. So that for me is how emotion works. So let's wander there. When I was listening to people of all ages, all walks, many of them were not from my church. I trained staff all over the country. I listened to teenagers at conferences, camps, all kinds of things. So it was not just a few parishioners in Hilton, New York. It was people all over the country and around the world. As I listened to them, I found patterns to how they describe their emotions. And oddly enough, I was in a conversation with a 13-year-old girl, and it was just, we were taking a bus trip up to Toronto to see Phantom of the Opera with my daughter's class. She was 13, and all the kids on the bus were 12, 13, or 14. So I was sitting in one of the bus seats listening to this 13-year-old girl talk about her friends. She didn't mind talking to me at that time. So she said, I hate these girls who are in these other seats. And I said, what do you mean by hate? I hate them for what they do. I thought, that's interesting. Do you always hate them? She said, oh, no, sometimes I'm just annoyed with them. I said, oh, really? Is being annoyed less or more than hate? She goes, oh, it's much less. But I can hate them more, too. And this is a 13-year-old girl with braces and curly hair. And she said, I said, so what's more than hate? And she goes, being vicious. And I said, so what's less than hate? She goes, being irritated. And in that conversation, this was 25 years ago, 30 years, 25 years ago. And when she made that comment, all the notes that I had been taking ordered themselves. It was like, that is how people see their emotion. There's like middle ones, and then there's intense ones, and then there's mild ones. So when I got home from that trip, I got out my note pages, and I had all these scattered words from just everything I had been noting that people said. And I began to order them into a system. And I eventually, it didn't happen in a day or a week or a month. It happened over a long period of time. I came up with the idea that there were 5 basic emotions, and they work in systems. There's mild words, there's moderate words, and there's intense words. So here's how the forest is ordered. The first one, not in order of priority or importance, just the first one I talk about, I call acceptance. At a mild level, it's being interested in something or liking a person or a situation or a food or anything. You like it. You grow from that, it becomes preference. I feel a preference for this kind of food or this person. Then I'm attracted to that person. Then I'm in love with that person. Then I'm enamored with that person. I'm bonded to that person. I'm blended to that person. I'm craving that person. I'm addicted to that person. I'm obsessed with that person. And the difference between obsession, love, and liking is one of degree, not a different emotion. What are you willing to do to draw that towards yourself, to have it or consume it, to make it yours? So when you meet somebody and you like them, You spend some time with them, but not every waking minute. You don't think about them all the time. When you fall in love with that person, you're willing to let them smell your body smells, which are terrible and offensive to everybody else, but not to that person. You're willing to let them see you without makeup, without perfume, without all the gloss that goes into dating, because you love them. If you're still hiding when you're describing your relationship as a love relationship, something's not clicking. But love has to do with more of you I accept. Then when you're bonded to that person, even their relatives, I was going to say their in-laws, become people that you like. Their in-laws would be your own family. So the reality is that more and more and more of that person's life, difficulties, foibles, mistakes, scars, all of that becomes acceptable in the package because of your love, your devotion, your connection. So the first system I call acceptance. The second system I call exposure. Exposure at a mild level is being shy, embarrassed, feeling butterflies, having a little bit of nervousness, mild. Then at the moderate level, it will be being fearful or guilty or ashamed, feeling very, very challenged, feeling risk. And at an extremely high level, it's feeling panic, feeling phobia, feeling terror. And so the difference between terror, fear, and shyness is one of degree, not a different feeling. The whole system of exposure has to do with risk, feeling unsafe, feeling insecure. Body language will reveal that. Words will, your saliva dries up. Your face turns pale as your blood draws down.
Oh, no.
No, go ahead.
No, you're still there. I'm like, no, not you too.
No, not me too.
Go ahead.
And so exposure has to do with a quest for safety and security. When you can build into your own life that safety and security is within your grasp, you can even deal with panic, with terror. When you feel like it's completely external to you, then you have a great deal of difficulty resolving feelings of exposure. But they're mild, they're moderate, and they're intense. Now, there's nothing wrong with the intense feeling of terror. One of the producers you have on your show was from the Bronx. If he was in New York City on September 11th, 2001, the feeling of terror is actually appropriate. People who are in New Orleans right now, or Mobile, Alabama, they feel incredible terror over Hurricane Sally wiping through. They ought to. That's really helpful because it will cause them to do what needs to be done to be safe. Here in New York, I don't have that feel. But if I'm terrified of Hurricane Sally in Western New York, it's like I'm imposing on myself something that's actually not real. Now I have fear that has no cause. I have something different to deal with. So that was the second one. The third one, it was the hardest for me to label. I call it empowerment. There are individuals that have pushed back to me. That's not a good word. That really should be something else. It really has to do with people standing up and getting their footing underneath them. And I said, that's exactly it. I don't see anger as bad. It's getting your feet underneath you. It's being able to be positioned to bring about change. So at a mild level, empowerment is feeling frustrated, annoyed, irritated. You get pissed off, you get angry. At a moderate level, getting furious, being competitive, being driven, that kind of thing. And at an extremely high level, it's being enraged, feeling violent, getting out of control. The difference between rage, anger, and irritation is one of degree. And they're all designed to bring about change or to get control of something. When you're in a competition, you want to win. That's about getting control of the game and coming out as the victor in that particular situation. So even highly competitive people appear at times to be very angry people. Mm-hmm. One of the odd things that happened a number of years ago was when college football, I believe it was, North Carolina was playing at Texas Tech. I think it was Texas Tech. And Texas Tech had never been in a playoffs before, and North Carolina had been in 6 or 7 or 8 of them over the years. Texas Tech, they won their division, and that night students were setting fires in their town, overturning cars, and creating these incredibly violent experiences. And somebody said, why in the world would people do that to their own town when they won? They were the winners. Well, you have a group of young students who do not have the life experience of that level of competition. I put competition in the same field as rage. They're sister emotions, but they didn't know how to manage the intense level of competition. And somebody started overturning cars, set them on fire, and that became a mob thing to do. But to me, they're not far apart from each other. That seems understandable. Third one. The fourth one I call depletion instead of depression. And depletion, there is clinical depression. I want to be extremely clear about that. When a brain chemical goes wrong, there are brain chemicals that are needed to correct it. That's clinical. But depression as a sadness is not clinical. That's a different thing. So at a mild level, it's feeling sad, being hungry, feeling blue, having a bad day. At a moderate level, it's feeling grief, sadness, pain, wound. At an extremely high level, it's feeling overwhelmed, destroyed, brokenhearted, or even numb. So the difference between being brokenhearted and being hurt and feeling blue is one of degree. All of them are designed to heal and restore, to rest, to recover, to be able to refill the tanks that have gotten empty. And so what I recommend is people struggle with feeling overwhelmed or exhausted is identify the tank in your life that is the most empty. What is it for you that refills that tank? Is it laughter? Is it rest? Is it good food? Is it chocolate? Is it ice cream? Do some steps that will allow you to refill an empty tank. And if it took you 6 weeks to get empty, it might take you 2 to 3 weeks to restore. If it took you 6 years to get empty, it might take you a year to restore. So give yourself the privilege and permission to restore what has been lost. So that's the fourth one, depletion. The last one I call celebration. Celebration is joy, happiness, gratitude, thrill. At a mild level, it's feeling good. At a moderate level, it's feeling joy or thankfulness. At an extremely high level, it's feeling mania or thrill-seeking or getting out of control.
And which one was that?
Celebration. And celebration is the shining or the giving away of yourself. A lot of people who are fundraisers try to do fundraising by fear tactics. We're going to have to let our staff member go if we don't raise this amount of money, or anger. What's wrong with you people? Why aren't you giving more? Why aren't you donating? Why don't you blah, 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 blah. The actual generosity comes in celebration. And so getting people to laugh, having them enjoy what's going on, seeing the value and benefit, not only to the world at large, but to themselves directly, is what elicits feelings of generosity and gratitude. And people will make larger donations more consistently when they're feeling celebration than when they're feeling fear or anxiety. So
Right.
the 5 emotions, acceptance, exposure, empowerment, depletion, and celebration, were systems from mild to moderate to intense. Now, one of the things that we've run into frequently is people say, yes, I felt love, but when it got really out of control, it was an obsession, and that's where the damage occurred. Well, that's not exactly why the damage occurred. It's what was it doing to you, and what were you doing with it? Now, sometimes you have a love relationship, but your acceptance is so subdued, so minimalized, that what will help is actually increasing your love towards an extreme kind of feeling, especially, let's say, when somebody gets cancer. When Mike's wife got cancer, it was a colorectal cancer, and they did everything they could medically, everything they could. They pulled together as a family. We have observed when a person becomes very, very ill, family members physically move away from them, even in the hospital room. Literally, they will take their chair from the bedside and move it to a corner or out by the door, or they won't sit down. They will stand by the edge because they do not want to be near the smell, the look, the sound, the feel, the texture of a person who is sick or dying. What we do is we teach them how to feel those feelings and to be able to resolve them. And we have seen families, this sounds really, really odd, but we have seen individuals die very well that would have died very poorly had their family not learned how to accept it. So even matters that are of utmost challenge, when a family is facing it, they have no idea how to do what they've never done before. What we do is we coach them through that. We walk through that. That is what it means for us to be caregivers and servants to our people. So that's a lot of talking. You must have some questions now.
It is a lot. And I really can't wait to get my hands on your guys' book. No doubt about that. But Bill, one of our producers, does have a question. He wants to know how do we change our emotional responses, feelings, into more of a thought process, changing behavior in an adaptive coping response way?
The emotions, it does. Absolutely, it does. Perceptions, I believe there's 10 senses of perception. We won't get into that tonight, but there's 10 senses of perception. They feed into our either reaction or our response of emotion. Emotion is the reaction or the response to our perceptions. Reactions are spontaneous without a good plan. Response is very well aware with a plan. So you can either react or respond. That's what emotion does. That feeds into our motivation. And one of the things that Mike and I have worked very hard on is the language to describe human motivation. So we did that with 5 drivers. Of course, we could talk about 10 million motivations, and then we're lost and we wander around a thicket and there's bogs and we'll never get out of it. So what we did was we reduced the concept to 5 drivers, and the 5 drivers are varied from each other based on how fluid they are, how flexible. So a conversation, when we use words and we're thinking about an idea, is the most fluid motivator. We're going to talk about pizza. What do you want on your pizza? And we list a bunch of stuff. Oh, I think I'd like pepperoni. I'd like pineapple. I'd like anchovies. And then somebody in the room says, absolutely no anchovies. You have anchovies? I'm leaving. I'm out of here. No anchovies, not in any stretch. We go, wait a minute. We're just talking about what we want on the pizza. A conversation is very, very fluid. The second level of motivation we call opinion or viewpoint. It's when the discussion in your mind is reaching a conclusion. You now have a decision you have made, and you're motivated to act on your decision. So when a person says, hey, my favorite kind of pizza is Hawaiian pizza, I love pineapple and ham, you say, fine, get your own pizza. We're now at an opinion level, which is divergent. We're no longer having a conversation. We're now pitting opinion against opinion. So that's the second one. It's more rigid, but it still has some aspects of flexibility. The third one we call values. And Myke alluded to this earlier. There are core values that are absolutely firm and fixed. They do not change. But the reality is, as you think through your motivations, values will get pitted against each other. Here's a good example. I have $40 in my pocket. I've made a value decision that I want to spend my money wisely and get all the way to Sunday with some money left in my pocket. That's a value to me. I want to spend my money wisely. However, we end up going after work to a place to get some food and some drinks, and I love buying the influence of other people by buying their food for them. So we all go out, and the bill is $37, and I got $40 in my pocket. So I have one value if I want to spend my money wisely, but I also want everybody to like me. That's a value as well. Which value wins? And so now I'm in a value contest, both of which are important to me, but only one of them is going to win. So values are more fixed, but there's still a measure of flexibility when push comes to shove, when values are in conflict with each other. The fourth one we called habit, which is what we actually do over and over. It creates muscle memory. So let's go back to the value conflict. I want to spend my money wisely. I want to buy my friends affection. What's my habit? Well, the reality is I never make it to Sunday with money in my pocket because I'm always buying everybody's drinks and food. So my habit is what causes my action, not my values. So habit, what you actually do, is more foundational, more rigid, more fixed than even values are. And the last one we called culture. Culture is what gives me my identity. It's when somebody uses an I am statement. So I have a number of friends that live near where I'm Jewish background, and my friends are Italian. So somebody will say, I'm Italian. I said, what does that mean to you? They say, well, that's why I gesture with my hands. I'm sitting here in my living room gesturing with my hands as I say that. I'm gesturing. I gesture. I talk really loud. I'm Italian, so I get really angry really fast, and I get over it really fast. When you come to my house, you're going to eat. You're going to eat until you're full, and then I'm going to send you home with plates of food because you have to eat when you're in my house. We're Italian. That's what we do. And so when you make an I am statement, I am this, I am in this culture, that really is nearly immovable. Let's take this now to the national scene. We have an accusation on one part of the country, this kind of person is racist, or everyone is racist because you use these expressions, or you have this viewpoint, or you treat people in this way. And the pushback on that is, I am not racist. I have a black friend, on and on. You've heard all the arguments back and forth. The reality is, for most people, not everyone, but for most people, this is not a conversation, and it is not only an opinion. It is culture. They don't even know why they do what they do. Mm-hmm. They just do it. And they just say, I'm a Southerner. They've made an I am statement. I'm a Southerner. I'm from the West Coast. I'm urban. And now they've made a statement that defines their culture. They can just say, hey, I'm a guy. That's what we do. Or, I'm an authentic woman. Well, you've now made a cultural statement that as a listener, I can begin to unpack and help you understand. Here's where this for you is rigid. How do we begin to have the conversation? As your producer said, how do we begin to have a conversation? Part of it is we raise the issue.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it is we develop a language base so you can actually talk, so to speak, in a new language about even yourself and your own awareness. If you don't have the words to do that, you don't have the language structure, you don't have the concepts, it becomes impossible for you to actually hold a conversation on what you're experiencing. So what we do is we give people common language. We help them understand each other as they begin to talk and converse. And we give permission to address not the entire culture, but a specific aspect of the culture. Let's take this part and bring it up to our conversation, or address our habits, or what is our muscle memory in this? What do we automatically do? Now we have something we can actually converse, and we can change it.
Oh, so good. All of this is so good. I highly recommend everyone grab your guys' book. Why do people act that way, and what can I do about it? I'm so excited to get my hands on a copy myself. How can they do that, Myke?
It is available on Amazon. We have print-on-demand books. So you can order one, they print it somewhere in the world, and they send it out immediately. We have ebooks that are downloadable, and you pay the price, and then it downloads into your technology. We also have an audio book on Audible, and we have it on Ingham Spark so that libraries or school systems or larger volumes can do that. We have a Facebook page, and Myke and I both regularly write on that page called Why Do People Act That Way? We have a website, Why Do People Act That Way? Or the initials, WDPATW. That rolls off my tongue. It won't roll off yours, but it's the initials of Why Do People Act That Way? And you can go to Facebook. If you like that page, when we write something, you'll get an idea. You can interact. You can ask questions. You can fire back. You can push back. You can deny that we have a brain in our heads. And we feel good about all of that. Because if somebody hates us and they're willing to actually express the energy to hate what we do, that's a great opportunity. The people who don't care, those are the ones that unnerve me, because it's really hard to have an apathetic person engage in the conversation. Angry people will engage in conversation. Apathetic people won't.
Right. Well, you encourage all of the communication. That's what's beautiful. I have had such an enjoyable time with both you and Myke. Thank you once again for being here on the show, sharing your personal journey stories and sharing your magic with us. It has been a lovely time with you, Myke. Thank you very much.
We have had a great time, and I'll speak for West Coast Myke and myself. Thank you so much for having us on tonight.
Oh, it's been awesome. And now that I know that your book's on Audible, it's going on my list today. Thank you for that. Next week, we're welcoming back to the show Misty Rose Merck. She'll be joining us once again for readings on air. So if you or anyone else you know would like to have an intuitive reading with Misty, be sure to share this information with them. You can call the show. You can hop on over to soulwanderings.com if you need that information. We're short on time, so I won't continue on with everything else. You guys all know that I love and appreciate you, and I'm so happy to be wandering with you once again this week. We'll chat, visit, spend time together next week. Until then, visit soulwanderings.com and kgraradio.com for all of the amazing shows. Have a good night, Wanderers.